Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we have Brian and Drew. Good to have you guys. In this podcast, we talk about how Taoist literature, which is all 200 to 400 BC for the most part, how it relates to our ideas of the higher power in recovery. We're all in some sort of 12-step recovery, and we talk about how this ancient literature speaks to us now. When we came into, I know I'll speak for me, when I came into AA, for me, I was told, there's a God and it's not you. We're not telling you what God is, but you're going to have to figure that out for yourself, which of course is the opposite of what happened when I went to church. They told me what God was, and this is what we believe. So I had the freedom to look, and I had a God belief. That belief, while in the program, has shifted and changed and morphed and evolved over the years. And this ancient text has really helped put into words what is beyond words. All these texts, no matter what we're talking about, if you're talking about the Bible, you're talking about any spiritual text whatsoever, the text is not what's important. What's important is what the text is pointing to. I've heard it put as the finger pointing at the moon. The finger's not the important thing. It's the moon that's important. So what is the text pointing to? So this is just one finger pointing at the moon, really, is the way I look at it. In this podcast, I think this is episode 400 of our podcast. So take a look back and search some of our prior episodes if what you hear today speaks to you. Today we're discussing a story from Thomas Merton's interpretation of the Chuang Tzu. And for those of you following along, we're on pages 116 and 117 of Thomas Merton's book, The Flight of Lin Hui, maybe? I know my pronunciations are incorrect. Before we talk about this story, two things I want to mention. One, I want to mention a resource that we have at buddyc.org. And the resource I want to mention today is you can join this podcast if you would like. We record every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. You can email me at info@buddyc.org, or if you're a member of our private Facebook group by the same name as the podcast, we post the link there, and you're welcome to join us. We have some folks that join and leave their camera off and just listen. So you don't feel compelled to. A lot of people are intimidated by the content or have some fear of being on the podcast for that reason. But you don't have to join in at all. We do not impose in any way. But if you find this speaks to you, come share your experience. That's what we're doing. Second thing I want to mention, we're going to take a little detour next week for the next 12 weeks. And we're going to take a step a week and talk about what Taoist text that we know of, be it the Tao Te Ching, the Wen-tzu, Chuang Tzu's writing, any Taoist writings, how they relate to each step. So next week we're going to talk about the first step, step one. So we're going to bring any text with us. We say that we don't, if you listen to prior podcasts, we don't read these stories beforehand and gather information. We want to hear how they're speaking to us in the moment. But for the next 12 weeks, we are going to prepare. I know for myself, I'm going to look through and find different texts that I feel relate to each step. I already have some, but I will have more. And we'll talk about each step and how we see those steps in Taoist writings. And if you have any, if you're listening and you have any texts that you feel pertain to a particular step, please send those to me. I'd love to talk about those if you're not able to come on the podcast and discuss. You're welcome to send those to me at info@buddyc.org or post them in the Facebook group, in the private group, and we'll try to talk about those in the podcast. For this week, though, we're going to be talking about the story from Thomas Merton's interpretation of the Chuang Tzu. You going to read for us today, Drew?
I will. The Flight of Lin Hui. Lin Hui of Kia took to flight. Pursued by enemies, he threw away the precious jade, symbol of his rank, and took his infant child on his back. Why did he take the child and leave the jade, which was worth a small fortune, whereas the child, if sold, would only bring him a paltry sum? Lin Hui said, "My bond with the jade symbol and with my office was the bond of self-interest. My bond with the child was the bond of Tao. Where self-interest is the bond, the friendship is dissolved when calamity comes. Where Tao is the bond, friendship is made perfect by calamity. The friendship of wise men is tasteless as water. The friendship of fools is sweet as wine. But the tastelessness of the wise brings true affection, and the savor of fools' company ends in hatred."
Thank you, Drew. So Lin was being pursued by enemies. Do we know why he was being pursued? I don't think so. So was the infant child his son or daughter? Do we know?
It says his child.
It does,
took
doesn't it?
his infant child.
Okay, so it was his child.
Buddy, I think there's something here where it says he was being pursued by enemies and then he threw away his precious jade. It seems like to me maybe there's some kind of tie-in to his rank, or
But that could have saved him?
I think that could have been, throwing it away could have saved him. That precious jade could have been causing a lot of problems in his life. It sounds like it if he had enemies after him.
Were they after the jade?
The jade may have been proof of who he was. So if he'd been caught with the jade, then you are Lin Hui. And if they catch him without the jade, then, you must not be Lin Hui because he has jade.
But it looks like he had the choice of either the jade or the child, right?
I'm thinking about what good is all these material possessions if you don't have connection with others.
Yeah, his first paragraph where he answers, "Why did you throw away the jade and keep the child? My bond with the jade symbol and with my office was the bond of self-interest. My bond with the child was the bond of Tao." So he's picking family over work.
Yeah.
Which is just as relevant today as it was back then. I'd assume that of the top 2 or 3 reasons why relationships end, somebody prioritizing work over to the detriment of family is probably in the top 5.
Look at where he talks about 2, where he says, where self-interest is the bond, the friendship's dissolved when calamity comes. Where Tao is the bond, friendship is made perfect by calamity.
When you're struggling is when you find out who your real friends are.
So the question is, am I living in self-interest or in the Tao? And it doesn't say that where the Tao is the bond, friendship lasts through calamity or survives calamity. It says made perfect by calamity. There's a refining that comes about through calamity, through hardship, that we don't find other ways.
I think one of the benefits of sobriety for me is thinking about how when friends or people who I love, when they've experienced something really devastating, and when I'm sober, I'm much more able to be present with them and much more willing to reach out, spend time with them, talk with them than in my non-sober times.
Thank you, Drew. This is April 26th in the Daily Reflections AA devotional book. Happiness is not the point. I don't think happiness or unhappiness is the point. How do we meet the problems we face? How do we best learn from them and transmit what we have learned to others? If they would receive the knowledge. That's as Bill sees at page 306. In my search to be happy, I changed jobs, married and divorced, took geographical cures, and ran myself into debt, financially, emotionally, and spiritually. In AA, I'm learning to grow up. Instead of demanding that people, places, and things make me happy, I can ask God for self-acceptance. When a problem overwhelms me, AA's 12 steps will help me grow through the pain. The knowledge I gain can be a gift to others who suffer with the same problem. As Bill said, when pain comes, we're expected to learn from it willingly and help others to learn. When happiness comes, we accept it as a gift and thank God for it. I had a friend in it passed several years ago. That was one of his favorite daily devotions, Jim W. When things are tough, we're growing. When things are easy, we can be grateful. This was definitely a time that Lin Hui had an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
When these hardships come about, they really show me what's underneath my actions. A lot of times I can think I'm in a good place, but if that heat starts turning up, I may not be in as good a place as I think I am.
Especially when it starts pushing one of them buttons.
Yes, made perfect by calamity. Life is life. Life, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. That's just life. And that idea really had to change when I first came into recovery. The idea of when things were good, that meant I was being rewarded some way. When things were difficult, I was being punished in some way. That had to change to this is just life. Can I accept a day that is not what I would really like is being okay and have peace through it without just ruining an already difficult situation by wishing it was different than it was. Most of what makes me unhappy in a difficult situation is not the situation itself. Most of it is me wishing it was different.
Doubling down, trying to take action.
Why? The why questions. Why is this happening to me? Yeah, that's right, Brian. Spiraling down.
Circling the drain.
Yep. Then we had love for the infant child, obviously. So he acted on the love rather than the self-interest, acted on compassion. If I understand Chinese culture at that time, you were able to sell people into slavery, or you were able to sell children even, which is unconscionable to us, but there was a value placed on a child. And if I understand it correctly, they did sell children.
That's in the bottom of the first paragraph. If he'd taken the jade with him, he could have sold it for a small fortune, but
Right.
instead he brought the child, which he could sell, but not for very much.
Yeah. That's not metaphorical. That's reality, is what I'm saying, Drew. Yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm thinking about service times that I try to be of service in my program, and that I could very easily say, well, this is taking up 15 minutes of work time or an hour of work time or whatever. And I realize what I'm getting from that is priceless. Another thing, it talks about the bond of self-interest. Showing up and being of service or talking to a friend and starting a conversation off with, how are you doing? And not making it about me.
That's so hard to do, Brian. I remember when I first started seeing that, I realized how many conversations, almost every conversation really, that I was in, I twisted to make it about me.
Yeah.
Everything was about me. So regardless of the conversation, I moved it to where it was about me.
My sponsor one time was made the comment about people that suck all the oxygen out of the room. And I thought, man, like I kind of recognize some of that in myself. I don't ever want to be that person. I could, like Buddy said, so easily start a conversation. How are you doing? Oh, I'm struggling with this. Oh, me too. And then I'm off to the races. I had a problem like that once, and we're done, or they're done.
10 minutes later, I realized, buddy, you did it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then that last paragraph, the friendship of wise men is tasteless as water. The friendship of fools is sweet as wine. But the tastelessness of the wise brings true affection. But the savor of fools' company ends in hatred.
I can apply that paragraph to myself in two different ways. One being the first way that stood out, which is who am I spending my time with? If I'm spending my time with drinking buddies, smoking buddies, using buddies, not you, buddy, but people who are, when I'm with them, we're never sober together. Everything we do has to involve alcohol or drugs or addiction of choice. It seems really fun. And anybody who's not using that thing seems pretty boring in comparison. But I know once I sobered up and started hanging around those people, I realized like they're really not fun to hang around when everything revolves around alcohol or drugs or addiction of choice. Once you stop using it, people who continue to use it just really aren't as much fun anymore. And it's an example of also you become more of who you spend your time around. I think I worded that poorly, but the people who you spend time around affect you, affect how you go throughout the world. You spend time with selfish, careless, impulsive, me-centered people, then I'm going to be more that way too. But the more I spend time with people who are giving and caring and compassionate and kind, and the more I'm like that. And the giving and caring and compassionate people are definitely the ones who I used to think of as the tasteless ones. Not tasteless as in like crude, tasteless as in the metaphor of
no fun.
No fun. Yeah. Fun is still water. And as I've gone through sobriety, those are the people who I enjoy spending time with the most. And then the second way I look at it is throughout my life, I've wanted to be somebody fun and exciting to be around. I've wanted to be the life of the party. And that's not a role for me. That's not my personality. And during sobriety, my wife has told me that some of our friends have told her that they really enjoy spending time with me because I'm just a really calming influence. They have been pretty self-conscious for all my life, really, about how I'm not the life of the party. I'm not exciting to be around. And it turns out that people appreciate somebody who's willing to just sit and listen and just be there with someone rather than try to entertain them or try to make them laugh all the time. That's one way I look at this paragraph, is telling me it's okay not to be the life of the party. It's okay to be the calm person who lifts people up just by being present with them. Really enjoy this paragraph as it helps me relate to going through life.
Thank you, Drew.
That reminds me of what I call safe people.
I found out my nickname in our friend group. I didn't know this, but a lot of our friends refer to me as the Mr. Rogers of the group, which if you want to go out drinking with somebody and raising hell, you don't pick Mr. Rogers, but you want somebody who listens to you and understands you and accepts you for who you are.
Yeah.
You pick Mr. Rogers. Of all the people to be compared to, that's a pretty good person.
Yeah, that's funny, Drew.
This is verse 41 from Derek Lynn, partway downstream a portion. The clear Tao appears unclear. The advancing Tao appears to retreat. The smooth Tao appears uneven. High virtue appears like a valley. Great integrity appears like disgrace. Encompassing virtue appears insufficient. Building virtue appears inactive. True substance appears inconstant. The great square has no corners. The great vessel is late in completion. Great music's imperceptible to sound. Great image has no form. The Tao's hidden and nameless, yet it is only the Tao that excels in giving and completing everything. I quit trying to explain my sobriety life to folks not in sobriety. People in my life that are in sobriety don't understand why meetings are important, or they misunderstand why it's important. I always hate it when I see TV doing AA or movies. That's not right. Everybody's not white knuckling it, just about to go drink.
Yeah. I've never been in a damn meeting where we're all in a circle.
Everybody's not about to go throw a fifth in the middle of the room and everybody dives for it. No, it's not like that. But I quit trying to explain it unless it was something that would benefit the person themselves. I quit justifying it to be a way to look at it. Because if I'm looking at self-interest, then the friendship of fools looks attractive, but it just leads to fear, hatred. Hatred has an origin in fear. I'm afraid I'm going to lose something I have or not get something I'm demanding. It's all self-interest. But the things of true value don't seem to have value.
What's that phrase? There's no honor amongst thieves. If that's what brought you together, then your friendship's not going to last very long.
Even in working the tools of the program, why me praying for someone that I resent? Why would that relieve my resentment? That sounds pretty tasteless. That sounds like it has no value whatsoever.
It gets me out of myself and reminds me that I'm the problem.
Yeah, but someone on the outside looking at that said, why in the world would that help?
It's like trying to describe the Tao. It can't be described.
Describing the taste of the strawberry.
Yeah, you can only experience it.
I think it's also describing why forgiving somebody who did you wrong isn't so much about them, it's about yourself. It's about you letting go of that resentment so your mind can be free to focus on things that are better for you than hoping something bad happens to that person or dwelling on how they treated you poorly.
As an overview to this story, if you were consumed with self-interest, it would make no sense to take the child over. I think it was a jade disc, probably from their culture, that would show his rank, that would establish his value. If you were in self-interest, that's what you would choose. So he chose virtue over self-interest.
Chose people over things.
That makes me think about those experiences where, you meet people and just something about them irks you. I know better because when that happens and I start carrying that around, the universe is going to bring that person into my path. Better yet, the universe is going to bring that person into my lap. They're not going to be in my path. They're going to be in my life. When I'm judging them, I'm in self. And that could be envy, or it could be my ego. And in reality, all I need to worry about is the ism that we share.
There's a real freedom, Brian, in letting them be them, letting them be themselves, and not spend our lives trying to change them into what we think they should be. Even when I see someone come into the rooms that I see where they're heading, I can make suggestions or I can share my experience in a meeting, but I can't change them. I can just really act like a light, not blind them, but share my experience. And that's a great thing about in sponsorship, that we don't have to take responsibility for those folks, those guys that we sponsor. We just share what worked for us. And if they take it and use it, great. And if they don't, great too. We take no responsibility for getting them sober.
It's like that friendship of fools is as sweet as wine. I've met quite a few fools. I is one of them.
And it ends in hatred, ends in fear. Doesn't turn out well.
There's a guy who I actually grew up with, didn't really know him that well, but our paths have crossed a bunch, and I just don't like spending time with him. He's one of those suck the energy out of the room. Oh, that's interesting. Let me tell you how the exact same thing happened to me, but it's more interesting because it happened to me. That sort of guy. And he lucked into a bunch of money not long ago. And I see him in the local newspaper and see his name everywhere. And I run into him every now and then, just out on the street, and try to avoid him if I can. Last weekend, this is a synchronicity moment. Last weekend, I was walking in my neighborhood, and there was a nonprofit some representatives of a nonprofit had a little booth set up on a street corner. And it's a group that my wife and I both really respect. And they were trying to get donations from people who were walking by. And they had a little leaderboard for who had donated the most money that day. And this guy's name was number one on the leaderboard, and he donated $1,000. And I thought, you know what? I bet if there wasn't that leaderboard, I bet he would have just kept on walking. He wouldn't have donated a penny. But because he knew that he could get his name at the top of that leaderboard for everybody to see, that's why he did that. And I caught myself and thought, maybe that's true. And if so, that did get him to give $1,000 to this organization. That $1,000 is actually going to go a long way. If they had to appeal to his vanity and to get $1,000 from him, then that's not bad. But I still don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt that if that leaderboard hadn't been there, he still would have given that same amount of money. I'm not giving him that much credit yet.
Hey, Drew, how much space did he get rent free in your head that day?
a bit, $1,000 worth.
That's funny.
Drew, you should have gave another 1,000 and said, add it to his name, make his too.
Yeah.
It'll be anonymous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had $1,000 to give, maybe.
Bless him, Jesus. That's what I have to do.
Let him change me.
With time, probably years ago, Drew, that might even still be with you. You might still be thinking about that. It's funny, with time, we start letting those things go, letting people be those fools that want to be.
And I thought about it. I didn't do it, but I thought about emailing him and saying, hey, I was just walking in the neighborhood, saw the booth for this organization, saw that you gave $1,000 to it, and just really, that's an organization that my wife and I really care a lot about, and just want to say how cool it was that you did that. Thought about doing that. I didn't do it, but I think just thinking about that kind of helped me care about the whole incident a little bit less and put his action in a little bit better light.
The great thing is we don't have to judge it either way. The problem is that renting that space in your head for free, that you had your time thinking about him. But you brought up a good point, though, Drew, in that if we could flip that to gratitude some way, it helps us to let that go. If we did no more than just, for me, thank you for allowing such and such to give, or whatever, some way that I flipped it to gratitude helps me to let those things go. Because the problem is us holding on to those things that are beyond, really none of our business.
It's also nothing I can prove. The only thing I can prove is that he gave $1,000 to this organization. I don't know why he did it. I don't know what his motivation was. And what I'm focusing on is the motivation that I'm completely making up. It is a little bit based on years of history with him, but still, all I know about that one incident is that he gave a bunch of money to an organization that I care about. I'm ticked off at him. That's a me problem.
Definitely. It goes back to that idea that we judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their action. And can I just get to the point to where I just don't judge others at all? Just let them be them. That's where the freedom is. If you flipped it back to our story, that's where the Tao is. You experienced a calamity in seeing that guy's name on the sign. The calamity was this asshole showing, or the way I'm hearing you, I can't believe I don't, this guy's doing it again just so he can get his name seen, blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing that, if I'm doing that, what I'm doing is I'm participating in a foolish conversation in my head, which only ends up, I may enjoy it at the moment, but it's going to end up negative with here. The story says hatred, but some kind of way that it's stealing my peace and joy. So can I just let the fool be the fool without adding me to it or my judgment to it? All that judgment for me doesn't change anything, doesn't change him, doesn't change what he does. I could be grateful he gave the $1,000 like you were flipping it around and just leave it at that. That's where this the maturity of this walk takes us,
Mm-hmm.
is to where we no longer dwell on those things that we used to dwell on that stole our peace and joy. We can let those things go. Let them be them. Great, he gave it $1,000. Okay. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have done it that way. I would have maintained my anonymity if I were giving.
Mm-hmm.
But that's me. It's not him. So
Because I wouldn't want people like me to judge me like how I'm judging.
I just wouldn't want people to know I don't like people to know what I give. I just,
And I'm sure some of it too is I'm envious that he has that money to just
there we go.
walk
There,
around,
now we're getting down to what's behind it, you know?
walk around on a Saturday afternoon and see this
Ah,
organization and be like, yeah, I'll drop $1,000 real quick. Yeah, I don't. I'd have to think about giving $10 real quick.
now we're getting to what it's really about, huh? That's what's great about recovery, and great when you either have a sponsor you can talk to about this stuff or friends in recovery you can talk to about this stuff. Because when something's disturbing me, there is something. I'll read the spiritual ACIM right quick. Page 90 in the 12 and 12 under step 10. It is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. And that's not a negative to beat ourselves up. That's a positive, because if there's something in us that's causing the disturbance, that means it's something that can be surrendered, something that can be changed, and we can be free of the disturbance. If it was you causing the disturbance, then I might not be able to be free of it. I may be trapped. But
Yeah,
being
that's one
it's
of those
me,
things that's in our control, within our
yes,
control.
yes, exactly, Drew. So if I'm disturbed, like you were disturbed at the guy's name on the sign, let's get down to causes and conditions. What's behind that disturbance? What's this? Oh, really? It's that I'm envious. If we get far enough down, I'm envious that I can't do that. Huh. Back to a point of fear, right? That envy, there's fear behind that.
For me, when I start digging, I realize it's not about the sign.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, it starts coming back around to me. It might be pointed at whoever, but it's, oh shit, here comes the arrow. It's pointing back at me.
Yeah.
Here we
That's
are.
right.
Here we are again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Envy because I'm afraid maybe the origin of fear behind the envy might be maybe God doesn't love me enough to do that for me. Or why don't I have enough to where I can do that? Or all those things that get down to those base fears of not being, for me, not being enough. That would be behind that for me. I got to let that go and accept the moment for what it is. It's exactly as it is, and it can't be changed. Not this present moment. Why can't I just be happy the way the moment is and not add all that other to it and make the moment miserable because it's not what I think it should be?
My default is, why am I not getting mine?
Yeah.
What is mine? If that ain't an ego,
Self-interest,
yeah,
as in the story.
yeah. I had a little blip of that yesterday. A friend of mine that's not in recovery was talking about another guy and who's president of an organization, and the guy's doing a really good job. And this guy's obviously, this guy's really successful as well. And he is doing an exceptional job. But my friend mentioned it, and oh, he's doing this and that. And I thought, but of course. And that was my first thought. And I thought, Brian, don't go there. You don't even know this guy. I couldn't pick this guy out of a lineup. I've never met him, but I just hear these little blips in there, and I don't like him because struggle of my life.
Then we can flip it backwards too. We can look at, okay, this is causing disturbance in my life, and do what Drew did. This guy's got rent space in my head for free. I'm giving him this space. Why am I doing that? And reverse it back, and he got some envy to surrender. My life is whole just like it is.
The fact that I walked around on a beautiful day in my beautiful neighborhood and ran into some nice dogs that I got to pet and just having a nice day. And the thing that I took away most from it was being ticked off that somebody gave an organization that I like $1,000. That's the one. Yeah. If I'd come home and my wife asked, how was your walk? And I was being honest with her, I would have said, man, you know what I saw out of all the 99, the 100 things I saw, 99 were positive, and that one was actually a positive thing. Yeah, I've got some work to do.
The great thing about the work, Drew, it's not punishment. The work allows you to live a freer life.
Yeah, the work is freeing myself from that Chinese finger trap.
Yes, freeing you from the guy's motivations, which you don't have a clue of.
No, I have no clue.
It's really none of your business if his motivation is good or bad. We can get to the point to where it really doesn't matter. Oh, great, he gave $1,000. They'll be able to use that. Thank you for $1,000 given to this. And the person who gave it's irrelevant.
And his reasons for giving it are irrelevant.
But your reasons for thinking about it are, right?
Yeah.
And then how many times in my life do I do that? How many times in my life do I do something only because somebody's watching, only because I know I'll get credit for it?
Or the times that we get misjudged for those things. I've had times when someone's accused me of, no, that's not why. What are you talking about? Oh, they're seeing what I'm doing totally different than why I'm really doing it. That happens too. But even in those situations, we can take the judgment of the other person out because their life really is none of our business. That's where the freedom is. It's not freedom to judge, it's freedom for not having to judge.
Yeah, and I can realize
freedom from ourselves.
I can realize that they may be having the same issues that I'm having with that guy. That person is thinking about my motivations because they're suffering from envy, just how I was thinking about that other guy's motivations because I was suffering from envy.
And eventually you can get to the point, Drew, to where you just don't judge any of it. It's okay. It's what it is, and move on. That's where real peace and joy is, not when we get past the rationalizing and get to the point to where it just is what it is. That's where peace is. That's good, guys.
Yeah.
Anything else before we close?
Thank you for sharing that, Drew.
Thanks for talking with me about it.
And next week we'll start on the steps. You guys, if you have any Taoist texts relating to step 1, then we'll talk about those. The first step being, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable, or powerless over whatever our 12-step addiction is that we come to recovery for. And we'll see if there's Tao texts relating to the first step. Yeah, we'll talk about those next week. So you guys, y'all have a great week and hope to see you next week. Thank you.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.